Hello everyone, welcome to Storytime. Today we're reading Diesel the Bodyguard, No Bullies Allowed, written by Cindy Shirley, illustrated by Cleoward. Delilah Dillard lived with her grandparents in a small southern town. She was a sweet little girl with big blue eyes and curly red hair. Her grandmother, who she called Nanny, had red hair too. She always said that freckles were kisses from angels, but Delilah did not like her crazy red hair or the angel kisses on her face. It was from being teased by a couple of boys at her school that made her feel this way. They would call her names like Delilah Dillpickle, Carrot Top, Copperhead, and Freckleface. One mean little boy named Richard would even say, "I'd rather be dead than red on the head." Oh, how she really did not like that boy. Richard and his younger brother Jimmy, the school bullies, would usually ride the bus. Luckily, Delilah lived at the end of a dirt road not far from school. It was close enough that she could walk there every day and avoid the two bullies. They were always picking on her, and she did not like either of them. "Why can't they just leave me alone?" thought Delilah. Delilah's grandparents had a lot of farm animals, but one rowdy rooster with really big feet was her best friend. They had grown up together. His name was Diesel. Everywhere Delilah went, Diesel would follow close behind. He would walk with her to school and wait for her every afternoon at the playground. Diesel had beautiful red feathers, a red head, too, but no one dared to mess with him. He had huge spurs on his feet and would attack anyone that came near him or Delilah. The two friends would walk home together every day and stop at the nearby lake. Diesel loved to dig in the mud with his big feet. He would eat any worms that he found. But Delilah would take hers home and put them in the flower box by her bedroom window. She was fascinated with the way the worms crawled through the dirt to help the flowers grow. Diesel knew better than to dig in there, since the last time he tried that, he fell into a holly bush. He did, however, spur the bush for attacking him, which made Delilah laugh. One morning at school, a new student walked into class. It was another girl with red hair. She wore black-rimmed glasses and had a mouth full of shiny new braces. Their teacher, Miss Bell, said, "Students, this is Lily Ann. Her family has just moved here. Who would like to help her find her way around the school today?" Delilah, knowing how mean some of the kids could be, decided to raise her hand. "Miss Bell, I will be happy to help Lily Ann today," she said. "Wonderful," said Miss Bell. She gave the girls a smile and put an extra chair at Delilah's desk. "I'm Delilah Dillard, and you can hang out with me today. We redheads really need to stick together around here." The new girl smiled and said, "You can call me Lily." Lily wasn't sure what to expect at the new school. She was just happy to have a new friend. During lunch that day, Richard, the school bully, spun around in his chair and stared at the two girls who were sitting together. "Oh, man, you've got to be kidding me. Now there's two freckle-faced copperheads to deal with?" Sitting at the table with him was his younger brother, Jimmy. He was just as mean as Richard. He was laughing and said, "Yeah, but one of them has 4 eyes and a metal mouth." Lily had never dealt with bullies at her old school. She didn't understand why someone didn't like her just because of the way she looked. It was at that moment Delilah decided it was time to put an end to the bullying. "Don't you worry about those boys. Just wait until you meet Diesel," she said. "Who is that?" asked Lily. "He is my bodyguard and best friend," Delilah replied. After school that day, the girls walked outside to the playground. There, by the bleachers, stood Diesel. Once he saw the new girl standing beside Delilah, he took off running towards her with his feet flying high. Oh no, Diesel, said Delilah. This is Lily. She is my new friend from school. She will be walking home with us today. Delilah managed to get Diesel under control by petting his head and smoothing his ruffled feathers. Good grief, cried Delilah. That was a close one. Those spurs are no joke. As they walked along the dirt road, Diesel would sneak up from behind and spur Lily's shadow. Delilah, who could see his shadow too, turned around and shouted, Diesel Dillard, what are you doing? The rooster froze with one foot in the air and slowly lowered it to the ground. He pretended to be kicking rocks and innocently looked around as if he had no idea what was going on. A little further down the road, they stopped beside the lake. Delilah said, We'd like to come here and look for worms for my flower bed. They wiggle in the dirt and help my flowers grow. I have never thought of that, replied Lily. That's a great idea. I can help you find twice as many. While the three were busy digging in the mud, they heard someone coming down the road. It was Richard and Jimmy. They had ridden their bikes to the lake to go fishing. Well, well, what do we have here? Said Richard. It's the four-eyed, copper-headed meadow-mouth and her best friend, the rusty old rooster. Delilah shouted, That is it! Get him, Diesel! The rooster bowed up his chest and spread his beautiful red feathers as wide as possible. Oh, man, you've done it now, yelled Lily. You'd better run. The boys barely made it on their bikes before Diesel jumped on Richard's head and gave him a good spurring. But before he let go, he gave the bike's back tire an extra kick. Jimmy started to laugh when his older brother's tire popped. That was when Diesel ran up and kicked his tire too. With two flat tires, the boys had to push their bikes all the way home. The rowdy red rooster strutted back to the lake as the girls laughed and cheered. Good grief, that was awesome, cried Lily. See, I told you he was my bodyguard, stated Delilah. Now he can protect you too. Diesel, would you like to be my friend? Asked Lily. After all, we redheads need to stick together. The girls laughed as Diesel strutted around crowing very loudly. I will take that as a yes, replied Lily. The next day at school, Richard and Jimmy decided to apologize to the girls for being so mean. We would really like to be friends with both of you, declared Richard. Do you think we could all go fishing at the lake after school today? I will have to discuss it with Diesel, replied Delilah. He is still mad at both of you, and I cannot guarantee your safety. The girls snickered. We will meet you both after school on the playground and see how it goes. When the bell rang, the boys went running out the front door. Little did they know Diesel would be waiting outside. Once he saw Richard and Jimmy walking towards the playground, he took off after them. With feet flying high and a crazed look in his eyes, he chased the boys back into the building. The girls, laughing hysterically, had watched the action from behind the bleachers. That'll teach them, Delilah whispered. Laughing, she walked over and bent down to pick up Diesel. It's okay, buddy. They have apologized. We're going to give them a chance to be nice, if that's even possible, said Delilah. The boys were peeking out of the window when Lily mentioned for them to come outside. Delilah decided it was best to hold Diesel a little while longer. Slowly the door opened and the boys stepped outside. You're not going to put him down, are you? Asked Richard. No, not until he calms down a little more, answered Delilah. You don't like it when you're the ones being picked on, do you? Maybe you both should stop calling people names and being so mean, stated Lily. Yeah, we really are sorry about all of that, seriously, replied Richard. We won't pick on anyone ever again, we promise. Well, I hope you both have finally learned a lesson. If you're nice to others, they will be nice to you, stated Delilah. What about that rooster? "Do you think he would let me pet him?" asked Jimmy. "His name is Diesel. If you're really nice, he probably won't try to attack you," replied Delilah. Jimmy reached out a finger and touched the feathers on Diesel's back. "Wow!" shouted Jimmy. "How cool is this? He's letting me pet him." Richard also reached out to pet the rooster, but was met with a growl and a snap of his beak. "I guess it's going to take a little longer for you two to be friends," stated Delilah. They all began walking down the road and stopped when they got to the lake. Richard looked down and found the biggest worm that he had ever seen. He picked it up and held it in front of Diesel's beak. "This is a peace offering, Diesel," proclaimed Richard. "Go ahead. You can eat it." Diesel snapped the worm out of his hand so fast that it surprised him. "That's one way to win him over," announced Delilah. Once again, Richard slowly reached out his hand to try and pet the rooster. With the worm still hanging out of his mouth, Diesel finally allowed the boy to pet him. "Wow, he sure is protective of you," stated Richard. "You better believe it," declared Delilah. "Diesel Dillard is the roughest, toughest redhead this side of the Mason-Dixon. He is here to protect redheads from school bullies everywhere. After all, we redheads need to stick together." The end.